Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode, episode 9 of Behind Enemy Lines podcast. Today's topic is going to be the goaltending situation that seems to be developing with our beloved Habs. And joining me, as always, is my good friend and fellow Habs fan, Steve.
Thanks for having me back yet again. It's a pleasure. And as always, when it's hockey season, the Habs are on, there's always something to talk about. So let's get busy.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about tonight with we're actually going to do double duty here with a game breakdown of the Rangers and a game preview of the Sabres. And tonight we're going to talk about what's happening with the goaltending issues in Montreal. And with that, we're going to let you take off with tonight's trivia question.
So we'll keep it relevant like we have in the past. We'll talk about goalies, the Sammy Dobish scenario, but let's keep it goalie-based trivia. The NHL awards a trophy every year, the Vezina Trophy. Why is it the Vezina Trophy? How did that come about? So, former Montreal Canadiens player, let's talk about why the Vezina is the Vezina.
Yeah. Um, and on a personal note, and maybe a hint to everybody else, it's probably not what you think. So don't Google it, but try to guess. Um,
No
uh,
chat GPT either.
yeah. On that note, we're gonna go. I just thought let's take a second here to give a shout out. Right? Let's see. Tonight's a big game too. 7:30 tonight. The Montreal game is on. 8 o'clock. The Jays game are on. So we'll just give a quick shout out. Go Jays, go!
Yeah, go
Uh,
Jays go. This is a big sporting event in Canada. So two massive games, and the Blue Jays will ride coattail to the Habs. We know that the Habs are Canada's
mhm,
team. We know that. Um,
yeah.
the Jays are Canada's team too. By default, they have to be because it's the only Canadian baseball team. But we're game seven. Go Jays, go! Let's see if we can advance to the World Series to play that Japanese god named Otani and
Mhm.
see if we can topple him like Godzilla.
Okay, so a quick breakdown of the Rangers game. Basically, I mean, as everybody knows the news, Doc, Liney, and Gooley out. Doc and Liney day to day, Gooley out 4 to 6 weeks, which brought in Veleno, Struble, and Beck was a call up and got in and got some ice time. So that pretty much sums up that as far as the Rangers game goes. Do you see anything different with Buffalo?
No, the only change I think slated for tonight is a change in goal. Jacob Dobish will get the starting goal. The rosters and apparent line formations will remain the same. Beck and Veleno will skate with Bolduc, and that will on line three, and line four will stay the Anderson line with Evans. So I don't imagine too many other changes. At some point, we can dig back into special teams, what's working, what's not working. But right now it's business as usual.
Okay, so with the Rangers game, what did you see that you liked? What do you think worked well for us? And like, what do you expect?
I thought we got off to a great start. I mean, we were up 2-0 early. Power play got some traction, and nice to get on the board. It was the start that we wanted. The Rangers are a team that had come in NHL record, been shut out in their first three straight games. It's never happened in NHL history, at least in modern day. And we jumped out to a 2-0 lead. It broke down shortly after that. So I like the pace. I like the drive. I think early we were up 2-0 shots on goal at that time were 5-1, and we slowly opened the door. What worked? The energy was great. Jonathan Quick found his groove, and really it became a goaltending battle, one that we did not win. We took a couple of penalties and we gave momentum back, but it was nice to at least get the good start. I hate playing from behind, but this team is gonna have to learn to play the lead. So a little bit of a different mindset because you can't play run and gun the whole time. You got to sit back. You got to play calculated, not give up odd man rushes, and definitely stay out of the penalty box. So we had some hiccups in the game.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what I noticed too was the fact that they got out to the quick start, which typically, we haven't been lately. It seems like we've been spotting the other team a 1-0 lead before, you know, the players decide to pull up their socks and realize they're in a hockey game here. Another thing that I think worked well is when Carrick took the run at Hudson. I mean, it was a clean hit. I got no issue with the hit. I don't think, these are big boys. They know what they're doing. But I like the idea that Jack Guy pretty much started sending the message that, hey, clean hit or not, lay your hands off of our guys.
Yeah, that's a bonus. And we talk about who has a role and for what reason they have that role. Arbor is known as a guy who doesn't mind settling personal vendettas
Hmm.
as well as defend his teammates.
Yeah.
In years in the past, the last couple of years, he's done that. He's done it on both accounts for different reasons.
Hmm.
Lane Hudson is a smaller player. We know that. We know he's creative. We know he's crafty, and we know he eludes things. But Carrick's job as a fourth line player is to put his body on somebody else's as often as he can. That one, it came at the expense of Hudson. I agree. A clean hit, a bigger man hitting a smaller man, but Arbor steps in and says, "Not on my watch." So good to see Arbor step up for a teammate. We will just take a small jump out of topic. And if you're following the sheriff's brother, the deputy, he did the same thing for a teammate Laval this weekend. So it's nice to see that through the organization, these are guys that want to be here. They want to protect the guys that are here, and it's a camaraderie thing, and that only builds down the road.
Yeah,
One
yeah, and the
sacrifice is
players love
another.
it. The players love it because they know there's somebody that's got their back, and these are grown men. They're not going out saying, oh, that guy kicked my sandcastle over. Can you beat him up? That type. No, it's players know because it gives them a little bit more space. They got less to worry about getting cheap shots against them, and they can play their game. Um,
Right. And there's a
and
second part of that. After I think it was when the TV timeouts and they were shoveling the ice. There was, how all the players go to the bench. At some point, when Jonathan Quick went by the bench, he was jawing at Lane Hudson. Obviously, probably some to the tune of, "Oh, Big Brother's got to come in and fight your battles." But Lane Hudson gave it back.
mhm.
He didn't sit there quietly and turn a blind eye. Yes, it's only trash talk, but it shows he's got some skin in this as well. So good to see that the overall level of compete, whether it's by mouth or by fire, we stayed engaged and one supported the other. So a huge plus.
Yeah, for sure. And on that note, I think what didn't work for me was they got that two-goal lead, but it seems like they fell asleep. And by the time they realized that there was a game on, it was too late. And before they knew it, the Rangers were up 4-2. And I think they just run out of time. They mounted the comeback. Dobson got the later goal, and they were putting the pressure on to try to tie it up. I think they just ran out of time, and they're not going to have them miracle comebacks every game.
Right. We've had Cole Caulfield be the hero 2 nights in a row. Overtime and game winner, regulation late goals to tie in game winners in overtime. Again, we'd love to write that script where you're on the edge of your seat for bonus coverage, not 60 minutes plus and still come away with 2 points. And you're right, we mounted a comeback, and again, great. I was a game late, trying to predict the goalies, our goal scores. I had Suzuki and Dobson the previous game to get on the board, so I was a day off of that. So
Mhm.
follow me for lottery numbers. You'll certainly give them to the lottery store at your local 7-Eleven, and it'll be the next draw that your numbers will show when you didn't pick them. So, but nice to see again the new guys get on the board. So, a shout out to Noah Dobson for getting his first, Suzuki for finally getting on the board. Nice to see some of our guys chip in, and this is going to be the strength of our team is roster depth. So, do I think we'll get 20 goals from everybody? No, but we'll get 10 guys with 10 goals. So,
Mhm. Okay, so on that note, Steve, that'll lead us right into predictions. What do you see happening tonight as far as maybe goal scoring and game results?
well, we have Dobish in net. The team plays with a little bit of a rejuvenated energy. It seems to be the last couple of games that Dobish has played. He's been on another good start like last year. Got off 6-0, I think, to start last year. He's 2-0 this year. That brings a different confidence. He plays a different style, and the team definitely feeds off that. So, Buffalo's got a couple of weapons. We referred to them as a dumpster fire. The North Tonawanda dumpster fire, and they've got some talent. Tage Thompson up front is still a guy that you got to be aware of. He's a guy who has scored lots of goals in this league, and you can't give him too much room. But we match his ability and size with speed. So as long as we take away the neutral zone from him and not let him get too much room, I think we can contain him. I see us bouncing back. I see this as probably a 1 goal game. I look for the power play to to get a little bit more energized. I think at some point we're going to see Demidov have a breakout game, so I'm going to call him with a multi-goal game tonight. Not multi-goal. We'd like to have 2 goals, but we'll settle for one. So I see Ivan getting a pair tonight.
Okay, I would agree. I think there's going to be, I think it'll be a close game again, and I do see maybe some breakouts for some players. I think the goaltending is going to make a big difference. I'm convinced that Dobesh will give the team a boost, and the boys will rally around and maybe play with a little bit extra oomph for Dobesh, knowing he's the backup kind of thing, which seems to work in his favor. On that note, that's going to take us to tonight's topic. What's happening with the goalies in Montreal? Is there a controversy? Is there a potential for a switch on the starter role? What do you think?
Well, we don't want to sound like the Maple Leaf bandwagon where we're broken legs getting back on and broken legs getting back off again. But this is the situation that breeds that word controversy. Do we have one? Naturally, when the incumbent isn't playing well, and the proverbial backup is, it lends to should that guy get more starts. We talked about this a few episodes ago. What is the Dobish workload? We know there's 16 back-to-back games,
Mhm,
so the projected number was probably going to be in that 20 range.
mhm,
Probably one of every back-to-back he's going to get, plus a handful of other games. But let's be honest, to date, he has been the far superior goalie.
mhm,
Statistically, you can look at it. You can't say on the same number of games because they don't play the same number of games.
mhm,
Monty is getting the lion's share of the work. He will always get a 70-30 type of split, but in the games that Dobish has played, he has been rock solid and put up much better numbers.
mhm.
And we can dive into the numbers. We were talking earlier today. What is the number you look for?
Yeah, so for the stats, I'm just gonna go on because I have them up here, and I'll bring them up on the screen in edit here. If you take a look at Dobesh's numbers compared to Montembeau's numbers, Montembeau now I'm just going regular season. I'm not getting into playoffs and that because there's not really a big enough sample size for that. Excuse me. But in a regular season, Sammy's played 210 games, has a 3.21 goals against average and a .898 save percentage. More particular this year, in his 4 games this year, he's 3.26 goals against and a .857 save percentage, which really is not, that's backup numbers at best. Now, if you flip over to Dobesh, he's played 18 games, has a 2.58 goals against average and a 9.12 save percentage. And in the 2 games he's played this year, he's got a 1.46 goals against and a .940 save percentage, which, as you say, even though a smaller sample size, it's a far superior number. And if you go back, look at his previous games in other teams, other leagues, things like that. That's he's been consistently over 900 save percentage and in the low twos goals against average. And you can say the same for Monty. He's been a consistently sub 900 goalie and in the plus 3.5 goals against uh, range over his entire career. So if you look at the span of their totality of their numbers, those leave me to believe that Dobesh should be the number one guy.
Yeah, and these are conversations when you're talking about the greatest of this or the best of that or a head to head. It's always on a body of work. What is the body of work? Not what did you do for me last game? What are you going to do for me next game? What does the body of work tell you?
Yeah.
And you hit the nail on the head. Dobesh has had better numbers consistently at multiple levels. Uh, do we say we caught lightning in a bottle with Monty last year and we got the best Monty that we're going to get? Could Dobish maintain the 946 save percentage or 950 save percentage? That might be a lofty goal.
Mhm.
But right now, Dobish is in the top three in save percentage, top three in goals against average.
Yeah.
Sure, you get blown out in one or two of these games, and that's going to come crashing down. But that means Monty has to be the hero a couple of nights and stand on his head and 60 saves and a shutout. And I just don't see it happening. So
Mhm.
should we start the craze on the goalie controversy? It's a conversation, and I think it's not panic mode. But right now we have a winning record. But if we go into a slide and it's Dobish that gets us out, is it time for Marty and his coaching staff to start to look at, let's play the hot hand you play until you lose? Because
Mhm.
nobody's playing the next 75 games. Not one guy. This isn't Marty Brodeur era where you play 78 games a year for 6 years. This is, what is your workload going to be? And and I'm a firm believer that this could be the year where Monty falls behind and loses his confidence, and we have a different goaltending tandem come the trade deadline. I know
Mhm.
that's speculatory, but when you look at the options that are out there, I will throw another rumor in the mix. What if a guy like Devin Levi, who has ties to Kent Hughes and is not happy in Buffalo, what if he could be available without giving up tons? Maybe it's a Levi for Monty, where Monty can go be a one or a two goalie in Buffalo, and we can elevate a Fowler or Kakinen and have Levi in the back, and we still have
Mhm.
three solid goalies in our system, and we turn around and gain cap room. So I know it's a rumor, and we can play armchair GM, but I think we got to start looking at Dobish, and if he keeps trending, I think we got to ride the wave. That's
Mhm.
the difference of putting you in a comfortable spot versus we can't afford another hiccup kind of
Yeah.
spot.
Well, look at it. Let's look at it in the Lane Hudson perspective, right? Lane Hudson, the rookie last year, it took until Christmas before they realized, hey, he needs to be our power play one guy. They got there. At some point, players are going to get there, and I just think Dobesh is going to get there. It's just a matter of when. Is it Christmas? Is it next month? February? But I think at some point you got to bite the bullet, put him in there because, you know, he's going to win you games that Montembeau won't win you.
Oh, agreed, agreed. And for different reasons,
Mm.
he's a taller guy,
Yeah.
and his style is different. But nobody loves the comparisons, and for Habs Nation out there, please don't take this the wrong way.
Mhm.
He plays more Carey Price esque than Monty does, and what I mean by that, he's a little bit more cool, calm, and collected in the crease.
Mhm.
Monty seems to get down on himself, and Monty will tell you after the last game, it's on him. He's got to be better.
Mhm.
You don't like deflections to go in. They're going to go in on every goalie. He got burned by deflection, but if you back up the replay and slow it down and watch his eyes, he wasn't tracking the puck. It's not like he was tracking the puck and the deflection
Mhm.
just beat him clean. He had zero idea where the puck was.
Mhm.
And that's just not good enough. And I think on the fourth goal when Panarin scored, he came out and he pushed off, and it's like he pushed away from the puck. He didn't push towards the shooter, so he actually opened up the angle,
Mhm.
and not typical Monty like, but that's just a sign of a goalie who's now got a head game issue.
Mhm.
The confidence is an issue, and he'll go back and I'm sure as a consummate professional look at game tape and hope he learns from it and bounces back. But if he goes into a 2 or 3 game bender, I could see the balance of the workload in the crease starting to change.
Yeah, and that leads to other issues that develop along the way too. And I'm going to give a shout out here to our Habs Nation March Forward for 25 Facebook friends. I've been having a discussion over the last couple days with one of the gentlemen on there, Daniel. I'm not even going to try to pronounce your last name. I'm sorry. Maybe I will. Gareau, Gareau. We've been having a back and forth about the penalty kill, Montreal's penalty kill. And he brings up valid points about the numbers not quite there, but at what point, where is the Montreal penalty kill that bad, or is it Sammy's not making some saves that need to be saved? And does Dobesh change that around? Does Dobesh get in there and make those saves to bring those numbers up to get us better? Is the penalty kill problem the player system, or is it just the goalie not making a few of the saves he needs to make?
I think it's a two-headed monster. I think it's both, right? You need the PK. You're playing shorter man, so
Mhm,
the instant advantages to the power play. We try to box him out. We try and minimize. We try not to chase, get caught in a bad cycle where that free man is the trigger man.
mhm,
But you need your goalie to be the fifth man and make the big save for you. That's the difference. And
mhm,
Jonathan Quick did that on Saturday. He made a couple of saves. They weren't tremendous, but they were the right save at the right time that kept them fighting to try and make the comeback.
mhm,
We need Monty the same thing. When we're up 2 goals, we need him to make that big save where it bails us out and gives us some momentum to come back down the other way. He's not going to get shutouts every game. He's not going to win 80 games. We understand that, but it's not wrong to expect your guy to be better and to call him out to try and be better.
Yeah, so I'm just sorry for I'm just going to bring up some the penalty kill because the point that was made, and I agree. I think there's two issues. I think it's partly players and system. I don't think that's the bigger part. I think the bigger part is the goaltending. So I'm just looking up here. I believe Montreal's penalty kill percentage right now is in the 75% range. Uh, 75, 76%, which is not good. It's in the definitely in the bottom, bottom third of the league, 25th, 24th, I believe. And it's got to be better. If you have Dobesh in there, basically the point I'm trying to get, or the question I'm trying to ask you is, if you have Dobesh in there, can he make the saves that take you over that 80% plus, which is where you really need to be a contending team?
Right. And, we can dive into analytics, after another 5 games, once we get to the 12, 13 game mark. And then we could have some more concrete data in the games that Dobish has played. Our penalty kill is this versus games that Monty's played. And those would be pretty good statistics to look at. Like you say, I mean, 75% is good, not good enough. I mean, it was good enough for me in math, but it's not good enough for a Montreal Canadiens power play. So, or a penalty kill. So we need that focus to try and be two-headed.
Mhm,
Does Dobish give you that extra save? It's quite possible he does. Because his style is different. And goalies build off it. We've seen that. How many backups did the Montreal faithful have to go through in the Carey Price days?
mhm,
Because when Carey Price was in net, you just knew it was ungodly, out of
mhm,
this world, everything he did. And when it wasn't Carey Price, it was, oh God, hold my beer. I sound like a newfie on a bender on a Friday night in a parking lot, but you can't have that you can't have that panic moment when the other guy is
mhm,
in net. And right now, that other guy is our starter.
mhm,
I've made no bones about it, saying that I'm not necessarily the biggest Monty fan. This is just icing on my personal cake.
mhm,
I hope he turns around because we need him to. We need him to be Monty of last year down the stretch.
mhm.
And we can't give away these 4 game winning streaks. We're going to lose at some point, but we can't have the streak go the opposite direction where after 12 games we're 6-6.
So I'm gonna just throw something out here, and I'm gonna again I'll bring that stat sheet up I had about with the player, sorry, with the goaltender numbers. But if you look at uh Montembeau's numbers this year, they are very comparable and in line, not too far off, a little bit better, but not much than Caden Primo's numbers last year. So you've got, you know, and we've all talked about Primo, that he wasn't the guy. He got traded around, and of course we had the little chuckle when Toronto signed him and things like that. But really, Monty's the same. Dobesh has got the starter-esque numbers. When would you, if you could, put on your GM slash coach hat and make a prediction? When do you think the trade? When do you think the what do you call
we
it?
we have a we have a guest appearance
Guest appearance. When do you
with
think
Harley. She
when do
wants
you
to get
think
her
the
piece on
switch
phone.
to Dobesh being the starter happens?
I think this is still going to be a American Thanksgiving kind of thing, end of November. I don't think we go till Christmas. Again, we are going to play 10 games, 12 games from now to the end of November. I think if one guy's 4-2 and the other guy's 1-5, I think we make a change because you can't continue to trend in those numbers with two different guys.
Hmm.
The team doesn't like it. We can't be a Jekyll and Hyde. We're either a Jekyll or we're a Hyde, and let's be the Jekyll and let's be on the upside of this.
Yeah.
Um, so I would like the coaching staff to sit down and say, let's play the hot hand. If that's in increments of three, you win three, then
Yeah.
you get your break. Then we'll go to the other guy. I want to see each guy get rewarded, not
Hmm.
one guy come out because, well, we have to be fair. We're
Hmm.
not giving up, participation, trophies. We're not giving the little participation patches that you used to get in elementary school if
Hmm.
you're, at school in Canada.
Hmm.
We don't need those. Participation is one thing. Stay home then if that's what you want.
Yeah.
Your mom can tell you you did a great job, but this is real life stuff, and this is where we have to find a way for one guy to take the reins, and that's the only way. And
Yeah.
if it's Monty, hey, great. I will give him his kudos and tell him that he got out of his slump and he was able to resurrect the right path. But in the short term, I honestly just don't see it.
Yeah, and you're 100% right. These are grown men, professionals playing for millions of dollars, and they know like they got to perform or they're going to be sitting. And I don't think there's any misguided loyalties about that. That's what happens when you play at that level, and at some point they've all gone through it in their careers. On that
Right.
note, that leads me into my next question I want to ask you. You already touched on it with the potential of a trade, whether it be, trade deadline, Olympic break, or Christmas, whatever. If Sammy's not the guy, and they potentially are not going to give Dobesh the chance. You had already mentioned about a trade for Devin Levi. Um, what do you see as the prospect of a trade or maybe somebody in the system to come up? Like I don't think we have a starter in the system just yet, and we'll discuss that a little further down, but what might be the solution?
Well, I mean, we talk about what could be and what couldn't be. Is Jacob Fowler the guy? Like, is Fowler the guy? If he gets off to a good start in Laval and he puts up a 10-12 win, do we got to promote him and give him some time? He has waiver eligibility. Do we give him a shot and let him get, Dobish play 3 or 4 games, have him play 2 or 3 games? Do we see if he can ride the wave?
Hmm.
I mean, sometimes you already have the answer within.
Hmm.
I would like to think that that's certainly the case, but we've got Fowler there for a reason. A lot of people are already pegging him as the next one. He's just buying time, but maybe we're gonna have to give him a shot. It
Hmm.
wouldn't hurt if you're in the doldrums of a slump. It doesn't hurt to check your assets from within so
Hmm.
you don't make a hasty trade where you got to pay because someone knows you're desperate.
Yeah, give up something when you don't need to.
Right. And
Yeah.
we have assets, but I don't want to burn them just because,
Yeah,
right? I don't.
they can be spent more wisely in other spots.
Right. And the trade deadline would be, hey, this is a one kick at the can. This team's out of it. They're dumping said player that wasn't available in November.
Mhm.
So let's not waste those assets because we got to think of this year, next year, and the year
Mhm.
after that. And if not, you're the Toronto Maple Leafs with 2 draft picks in a year, and we love when they do that. We don't need to follow in
Yeah.
their footsteps.
Yeah. So and I think I would agree with you. Um I think maybe patience is the better part of valor right now or whatever that expression is. I think we yeah, don't hit the panic button. Let's wait and see. Dobesh, I think, will shine. He will prove his worth and I do see him actually eventually taking over the starter's position sooner than later. Um and again, you got Fowler. I know in previous episodes we had, predicted, how many games, does he get called up, play some games, how many? And as you say, if he's got waiver exemption, that just makes it easier. And I'm more convinced now that Fowler will see games this year with the big club for sure.
Yeah, I was optimistic at the beginning of the year, and I know there's a lot of people. I've talked to Vincent Marino, who leads that Habs Drive for 25 group, and we're trying to speculate what does the future in the crease look like. And this was back in training camp,
Hmm.
and I think realistically, if it doesn't happen this year, I think next year the net becomes a Fowler Dobish situation, and
Hmm.
if one takes the bull by the horns and it's the starter, let's
Yeah.
give it Dobish and Fowler's a good backup, then we're not wrong. You know, let's give our guys a chance before we make hasty trades, but I don't see the Montreal faithful letting this linger.
Mhm.
There's other teams out there with worse goaltending situations than us. So maybe you're giving away a guy like Monty and only getting a minor league player back, but sometimes the best deal is getting the cap space in return.
Yeah, for sure. And I think now uh something else they're doing too, just a real quick hit on cap space. Montreal is carrying one player less on their roster, which is accumulating cap space for them at the trade deadline, and it's being done on purpose. And I think, you know, that old expression, Hugo, they're genius, they're playing chess and everybody else is playing checkers. They're thinking long term, further ahead where they're going to accumulate that number, that monetary number at the trade deadline and really be able to use it. And as you say, maybe a package with Montembeault frees up more and helps out, a goaltender to support Dobesh, right? Instead of being the other way around.
Right. And it could be another starter on another team where a team's fallen out of the playoff hunt, or they have just decided, hey, this guy could be better because he's cheaper. Maybe we're acquiring a bigger name at that point.
Mhm.
Stranger things have happened. I mean, we dealt away Patrick Waugh just because, and because Mario Tremblay was the better part of a donkey and showed his true colors and had a personal grudge, and Patrick was just as stubborn and said, as a quote a line from Slapshot, Mr. Denny Lemieux, trade me right fucking now, and he
Yeah.
was gone. So we don't want that to happen again to any of our players. We don't want Suzuki or Caulfield or any of these guys to say, "Hey, you guys can't, you can't find your ass from page 6."
Mhm.
So I'm done. Get me out of here. So
Yeah.
hopefully we can deal from a position of strength, and that's with prospects and players and goalies alike.
Okay, so on that note, let's look ahead. We've already touched briefly on Jacob Fowler and his potential. I mean, it's no secret everybody's predicting him to be, the next guy, the next Carey Price, the next Patrick Waugh, and he has the numbers to show it. He's playing well. And it's not just the fact that he has a good team in front of him, but if you look at the saves he's making and his positioning and things like that, he is an outstanding young goalie, and he's going to be he's going to be something. Um, but is that next year? Is it the year after? I kind of think he's on a 2-year program, to be honest with you. Um, Maybe late next year. But if you look at, some of the names, Montreal has a deeper goalie prospect pool than I think most people realize. We got Fowler playing in the American Hockey League. There's another young fella, Yevgeny Volokin, playing in the Russian League. He's in the VHL, which is, their equivalent to the American Hockey League in the KHL. There's the young fella playing in North Dakota, or sorry, Denver. Um, Quentin Miller, he's got some fantastic numbers there, and he's had some pretty big game numbers over his career with in the Quebec Junior League. He's just new to the University of Denver. He's only played 2 games, but he's got a .48 goals against average and a 977 save percentage. Again, small sample, but you're playing in a big division hockey program. It's still got to mean something. Like you say, let's wait Christmas, see what them numbers are. But, with those 3 or 4 goalies, Montreal's got some pretty deep prospects. Are they all going to play? No. But is it trade bait? Absolutely.
Yeah, and we want to be selfish. We want them all to play for us, but we can't truck out a lineup of 12 goalies and 3
Mhm.
defensemen. I mean, that's not going to happen. So some of these guys will be moved along when the time is right, and if Gordon and Hughes have their way, it's when the value is right. And
Yeah.
again, hopefully we're bridging a gap right now where we can build a deep roster that cycles itself over. And
Mhm.
we'll talk about the roster and the salary cap and draft picks and draft potentials and who's who in a few episodes down the road. But right now we have enough assets at every position, and really for the first time in a long time, since the 2005 draft when we drafted Price, we have goalie depth at more than one level.
Mhm.
So it's a nice problem to have. Hopefully we get it right.
Yeah. So on that note, I'm going to start off with the final thoughts on this one, only because uh, I'm going to sort of give you my thoughts and ask you. again, put on your wizard's magician's hat for me. Um, my final thoughts are basically I don't think Montembeault, like the guy, you can be the greatest guy in the world, but if you're not doing it, you're not doing it. I don't think he's the guy. I think he should be the backup. I think Dobes should be given his chance to be the number one and show us what he can do. I would rather do that now instead of waiting till it's too late to, you know, be out of a playoff position or be whatever. And I think banking the wins now is definitely better than fighting to get them wins later on. I think we do have a fairly strong goalie prospect pool. I suspect you're going to see Fowler get a couple games this year. Uh, Maybe be called up and playing full time next year as the starter. I'm not sure. I guess that depends on how Dobesh does. But I think basically we've got time to let him develop and not rush. And I think we have some prospects in, Miller and Volokin that could be used as trade chips. That would be my final thoughts, predictions on the goaltending situation. I'm just wondering what yours would be.
I would like to see us ride honestly status quo with a balance in power shift and rely more on Dobish. His numbers support it. But again, you can't lose the big picture, and it's wins and losses.
Mhm.
You can be the nicest guy. We've talked about that, but nice guys finish last, and we don't want him to be the guy that makes us finish last, right? We can't
Yeah.
be the first guy out of his playoff spot, and we don't want to claw our way in because we want to try and get home ice advantage. We have a team that's built for this,
Mhm.
and we're only getting better. So I see the general manager looking at a trade. I honestly don't think Monty's going to be here come the end of the year.
Mhm.
I hope I'm wrong because he played good hockey for us and was on the Four Nations Cup roster. Didn't dress or play, but he was on the roster, so that counts for something.
Mhm.
But I just don't like the sample size, the trending of statistics. And unfortunately, I think he's gonna end up somewhere else. Whether or not we eat money on this one or not, but I think he's going to end up somewhere else by the end of the year.
Mhm. Well, and again, just real quickly, I think it only benefits with cap space and player slot space, I guess is the best way to put it. Getting somebody in there that's going to help out. But like I said, and I think we both agree, Dobesh at some point in the near future is going to be the guy they're leaning on more than Monty. Um, on that note, I think that's going to bring us to our trivia question. Um, and I think you got quite a detailed answer for us on today's trivia question.
Yes, so the Vezina Trophy was named after former Montreal Canadiens player George Vezina. He collapsed in a game in 1925 and subsequently passed away. Or he collapsed in a game in 1925 and was later diagnosed with tuberculosis and died in 1926. The team donated a trophy to the league, and it was a trophy given out to the goaltender with the best goals against average. That has since been reformulated. There's been slight modifications. The goaltender with the best goals against average is now the Williams Jennings Trophy, and that's usually shared by a team versus an individual. And the Vesna Trophy is now, as of 1981, 1982, it's now been given out based on a vote by the general managers in the league. So
Mhm.
the Vesna Trophy still holds prestige within the league. And again, we talked about this in a previous episode. Might be my hot take that because we have a trophy named after a guy, we probably should retire his number next.
Mhm. Well, having said that, when I looked up, because I cheated, I Googled. When I looked up, I expected, and I looked this up some time ago about George Vesna's numbers, and I thought, well, they got a trophy named after him. He must have went, because keeping in mind they didn't play as many games back then. I think they only played 20, 30 games a year back then. I'm thinking, oh,
Games.
well, he went, 28 and 2 kind of thing. Honestly, he really didn't have that good of numbers as far as win-loss goes. So I'm not sure, I think it was a memorial. I mean, he was the great goaltender of the era, they say,
Yeah.
but how bad were the rest of them if that was, I
Uh,
encourage people to take the time to look up George Vezna's numbers, you might be as surprised as I was. That's all I wanted to
Right.
say. So,
But it was monumental at the time, and again, in a league that didn't have many players, it meant something to this league. And how do you
mhm,
recover from it? I mean, again, we don't need to get into a whole vaccine debate, but those things were primitive back in the day, and he subsequently passed, and
mhm.
they honored him and named a trophy after him. So, and it's still that trophy. They haven't renamed it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, on that note, that's going to bring us to a conclusion of today's episode of Behind Enemy Lines. As always, please like, share, comment, send us, your thoughts, pictures, emails, whatever you want to, talk about. Let us know. We'll be only more than happy to get back to you. And we're looking forward to seeing you on our next episode. And as always, I'm going to let Steve finish it off.
Well, we'll change it up. We'll throw in a Go Jays go, but keep your bats on the field and your stick on the ice. Go Jays.